Validation. Thank you. Your existence has been acknowledged, and you have been granted access every Thursday and Friday. You will be accompanying your guides, Krista and Brandy, along with their world-renowned guest. They will be exploring an intriguing tendril of what humans refer to as reality each week, as they strive to advance you further down the path to the truths of your physical earth and what lies on the other side. Remember to please keep your hands and feet in the vehicle at all times, and do not exit until the craft has come to a complete stop.
And hello.
That was awesome.
You like that?
I love it.
That was, yeah, that's my buddy Tex from Texas Front Porch did that little ditty. And of course, everybody, welcome to the Blondes, the Booze and the Woo. As you can see, two lovely blondes taking over the controls for this evening.
It's a guy takeover of their show.
It's a takeover of the men. Krista and Brandy are somewhere in San Antonio, Texas. They're on the way to a conference down there. So you've got Paranormal Paul from Paranormal Among Us. And of course, y'all know me. I'm Bigfoot to Michigan Rob. So hello, everybody. Thanks for coming on in.
Hi, all.
We have a fantastic show slated, eh, Paul?
Yes, we do. Ernie Davieau is going to come on here in a few minutes and talk about his Bigfoot encounter. I'm not going to say story. It's a Bigfoot encounter. It's an amazing story. I talked to him on my show a couple weeks ago. And get ready. This is going to be a good one. This is a good one.
It is going to be a great one. And, you were going to give me a little clue into Ernie's stories.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, you know what? I like to be surprised. First time ever. And I'm like, I'm just kick back, listen what he has to say, interject here and there. I think it's be fantastic. We were talking backstage for about 5 minutes. The guy is, I like the guy already, despite the fact that he hails from Ohio. Well, I don't know if he hails from Ohio. He lives in Ohio. Before we get started, thanks for everybody for coming on in. Don't forget, on Mondays is Texas Front Porch. Mondays, 8 Central. Please subscribe to Texas Front Porch on YouTube. Tuesdays is, of course, good old Bigfoot Michigan Rob. Please subscribe on YouTube. Tuesday is Beyond BMR, 8 Central. Wednesdays on Texas Front Porch is the Diva Dimension, 8 Central. Then we go Thursday afternoon with myself and typically Brandy at 1 Eastern time with brunch with Bigfoot Michigan Rob. Thursday afternoons, excuse me. Then Thursday nights is the Blondes, the Booze. The Blondes and the Booze. They come on at 8 Central. Then on Friday nights, which is tonight, the Blondes, the Booze, and the Woo, which of course comes on 8 Central. Texas Front Porch, for those that are into true crime. Tex 6 Eastern does Infamous Minds, and I believe a new show drop with the Randy and Brandy, Truth or Tinfoil. Yeah, and that comes on, I think, an hour prior.
Yeah,
I don't have these times yet. They always make up these different slots, and and I got to do this all from memory because I'm not one of these guys that writes anything down.
I could remember all that stuff either. I'm still trying.
And I'm having a birthday tomorrow, so my brain is still semi functions. I guess.
And you got the Lions on Sunday, so you guys got a lot going on this weekend.
Thank you for that, because for the last 2 weeks I've been pounding Lions talk for the start of every show. Yes, the Detroit Lions Sunday 6:30 in the East take on the San Francisco 49ers in San Francisco. It could be the end of the line for my Lions, Paul, but I got to tell you what, I've been waiting for this. I've been waiting for this my entire life.
Honestly, I think this is a really good matchup for the Lions. The secondary, but if your guys' front four can hold strong, there's no reason why you can't be in the Super Bowl in 2 weeks.
If you want to see a grown man cry, tune in 9-10 o'clock in my house, because I'll be filling up the tear bucket. I'll be filling it up.
Yeah.
Yes, and Lil Patty says, "Hey Rob, go Chiefs." And I was talking with Paul. You know what?
Yep.
That would be the end of a storybook season, because I am rooting for the Chiefs. I'm sorry, Baltimore fans, because the first game of the year, the Detroit Lions beat the Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City to start the season. Wouldn't it be so fitting to have a Detroit Lion Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl and we win and beat them to end the season? That is a good storyline.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you talk about the mother of all bookends. I mean, that would be the perfect ending.
That is an awesome bookend.
Yeah.
I'm excited. Plus, Krista and Brandy are both from St. Louis, so that would I'm sure some wagers. We'll have some wagers if it happens.
St. Louis, I guess, is rooting for the Chiefs. Everybody's calling, since the Rams left, everybody's saying that the Chiefs are our team. And like, no, we're not. No.
Yeah. In fact, you were talking to me when you were in St. Louis. Your team was your St. Louis Rams is now the Baltimore Ravens, right?
No, they're back in LA. They're in Los Angeles. Rams.
Well, did you remember though? The St. Louis Rams sell the team at one point.
So Georgia Frontier owned the team when they first moved here, and then when she died, her kids didn't want to have anything to do with it. So, good old Stan Kroenke, who is hated terribly around this town.
Yeah.
He took controlling interest of the team, and he moved them all back to Los Angeles.
Yeah, I thought it was something like that, but
yeah, and he dogged the city the whole time. So,
well, I guess enough of this sports talk, because like I told you backstage, I wanted to start a sports channel as well, but enough of that. We've got Ernie's coming up. I'm gonna wait for him to. Looks like he's getting just about ready here, and I guess it's gonna be a fascinating show. Great encounter stories. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks to everybody in chat for coming on in. Hello to everybody. I can't chat with nobody because I don't have access to that. So hello to everybody. And Ernie, if you're ready, I'm bringing up 3, 2, 1. Here we go.
Hi, Ernie. How you doing?
Welcome to the show.
Doing pretty good. Thank you very much.
Good.
It's a real honor to be here.
Welcome to the Blondes and the Booze with two non-blondes.
The Blondes and the Booze with two non-blondes, which is a song, I believe, or a group from the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, 4 non-blondes.
Ohio.
4 non-blondes. Huh?
Ohio is a song too.
Yeah.
Crosby, Stills, and Nash.
Yeah.
I
guess Ohio's good for something, I guess.
Yeah, we're all here only temporarily anyways, on the planet. So
that's right.
Make the best out of it.
That's a great topic for another time, isn't it? We're all
it could be. It could be.
I'll lead in a little bit if you don't mind, Paul. I just want to say thank you to the show. Paul, thanks for helping me out. Thanks for helping out the Blondes.
My pleasure.
They're awesome. They have a great channel. Hopefully we do them justice today, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
And so Ernie, you're on. Again, I understand that you've had some experiences with cryptids, Bigfoot, Dogman, what have you. And before we get started, why don't you introduce yourself to everybody, and we can get on with it.
Mm-hmm.
You already know my name. I'm just a simple guy. Got a military background, heavy into martial arts my whole life, and hunted pretty much my whole life until this happened. And this was about 36 years ago. And there's an ongoing single researcher in that area that I stay in contact with. We've been patterning them.
Patterning.
Good, thank you, Paul. in that area, and as it turns out, my original thought was I was in an epicenter. I was in the exact center of, I'll say, several clans and a family of them, and the history of that area is really steep and a lot of lore and mysteries in that area. encompasses a part of Massachusetts that some people are probably familiar with: Drake Mountain, Sodom Mountain, Bad Luck Mountain, and Mount Greylock. And
what big city is that near? Because I was looking it up before.
Yeah, the closest city to that would be Westfield, Mass. I believe. Okay. Well, yeah. I left quite a while ago at that time, and it was a population of around 38,000, and it encompassed, I think, somewhere around 36, 37 square miles of that area. And then you have Springfield, Massachusetts, Holyoke, Massachusetts, Amherst, up around that area. So some people are probably familiar with Amherst State College, Wilmington State College, and places like that. But the area in itself is exceptional, very mountainous. We have a lot of ravines in there, and during hunting season in that area, not too many people really want to go into that area there because of a lot of the things that have happened in that area. I didn't care. You know, like I say, I grew up hunting. I've been Native American background. I learned how to hunt off my father, my great uncle, who was a guide in Maine during, I think the 30s. I'll say something like that. And he worked at a logging camp, and his main thing was to get food for the other loggers. You know, but they had a bad habit of hiding our family traditions. You know, at the time, that you'd have to understand a lot about Native American traditions and how they try to hide the family. Some of them tried to hide that you were Native American, but if you listen to them speak the old French, and that's what they would rely on when we went hunting. And like I said, we have always had them around us, but we never knew it growing up. You know, I was allowed as a kid, some people would look at it as being a kid, at 9 years old, 10 years old, to be going hunting with a shotgun, be entrusted to do that, you know. And, you know, you first had to show that you could shoot a shotgun accurately, you know, and then you learn where to shoot the shotgun, and you learn how to track, and you learn survival skills out there. So that's pretty much my background growing up in that area, and liking to hunt by myself if my brother wasn't hunting with me.
And that, you know, tracking and your hunting history is very important to a later story, and that's all I'll say. I feel like Forrest Gump. That's all I'll say about that.
And what I would like to add quickly too is I think that's awesome. 10 years old, learning how to track, hunt, shoot a shotgun, because, you know, I think it's appropriate for people that are of the woods, of Mother Nature, because I know a lot of men like myself growing up. When I was about 8, 9, or 10, for me, I lived in the suburbs, not close to the woods, but what was in my hand was a baseball, a football, a bat. So it's kind of really the same thing. My dad was not a hunter. I learned how to hunt later on in life as I got older and I was interested in it. But so it's kind of very good parallels depending on where you live and how you were brought up. So for learning how to shoot a weapon or shotgun at 10 and tracking is not all that unusual compared to a man or kid throwing a baseball.
Yeah, absolutely. We that was part of our life. You know, we would share that on Thanksgiving. You know, anything that we had harvested, we would bring with us, including the stories. Even if you didn't get something, you would bring that story to the table afterwards and share those stories. Like if anybody's familiar with Dancing with Wolves, to watch him tell the other members of his then being tribe that he was welcomed into his story, even though they were there, that was their TV. So even to this day, when somebody shares something with me, I try to I want to hear that emotion in there. I want to see that, because I'm going to relive that with you, like I was there with you on that hunt. Yeah. We are very interested in that. What were you thinking? What were you feeling during that? How did it go? What did you see? What did you observe? You know, from the moment that you woke up in the morning and ate your breakfast to the time you got your harvest, to the time you got home, what happened? We want to know it all. And so I had that bit behind me, and plus coupled with a little bit of the military background, I was trained to take information in, you know, and as a fighter, I was trained to be in control of my fight or flight. And that is essential, what I try to tell everybody. I personally waited 36 plus years to come out with this. I prayed at least, I'm going to say once a week anyways, that somebody would please come out with this, because it's, when I get into the story, you'll understand. It's one thing, I could have very, very easily gone down to the local bar after that morning hunting, which I personally didn't get a deer that day. But, and I could have told everybody at the bar, guess what I seen? Yeah. And that would have been a piece of cake. It would have been a story for somebody to put in a book and read to you like a nighttime story. Mm-hmm. But that's not what happened. And because of what happened, I feel that there are no coincidences in this world. I know there are no coincidences in this world. Right. And I'm here for a reason. And my prayers were, please somebody stand up, because I didn't want to be the guy standing in the field, the first man. But you know what? Somebody has to be the first man standing in the field. Right. And when you hear this story, this is no brag, this is fact. Please take in all information. It is not open to an opinion. I don't like that word, because it gives you a chance to use that to get out the back door and reinterpret something that I'm saying. The information that you're about to hear needs to be taken highly seriously and to be used in the field as, like, playing football, those skills, the competitor. Those are things that I look for in my trade as a butcher. If I'm going to train somebody, I want to see the competitor in there. I want to see that you want to win. Okay. And in this here, this information here, if you want to be a researcher, then be a researcher and take the next step. Otherwise, what you have after 55 years of this field being open to researchers is tracks. And if there's one thing that I learned when I was a kid hunting, many times coming back empty-handed, and sharing my story of the big tracks that I found, tracks will not fill your stomach. You cannot eat tracks. You cannot make soup out of tracks. You need evidence. In the scientific community, they are exactly right. For them, they need 3 bodies. I don't want to be responsible for those 3 bodies, because then what you have left is you have, well, you know that they have hair. So you've heard, you know that they have, it's going to be all physiological. It's going to be, yeah, they have toes, they have fingers, they have eyeballs, okay? But you aren't going to know anything else about them. If we look into the Native American traditions and legends and prophecies and everything, we find some concerning things that are going on there, that it is foretold in a lot of Native American traditions that in the final days, Big Brother will come to dance around the sacred fire one more time to fight the battle with us. And that's where we are at. That's where I feel we're at. And I'm standing in the field to give the other people that are out there the courage to stand up and say, this is it right here. If you're in a group you don't think you belong in, then get in a serious group. Learn some survival skills. Stop with the beating on the trees. Stop with the whooping, because you have no idea that what you're doing. You wouldn't want to be playing hide and seek with me in the woods late at night and running around trying to catch me and you're whooping. You're not going to succeed. Okay. And these things are very intelligent and they're very spiritual. And we can go into the woo a little bit later on perhaps that they are spiritual enough that they can control some things. And they are always watching you, as was told to me by somebody I told this story to. I was invited to tell this story to, and his name is Chief Ernest. And I met that gentleman, and he is the great grandson, I believe, of Sitting Bull, perhaps, maybe Crazy Horse. I don't quite remember. And he had a lot of questions for me that day, and they were of spiritual value. always watching over me, and they knew who I was. So when you hear this story, you're going to put it all together. Please do remember that your very next step, is not another track, or I'll call it a turd. You can call it whatever you want, or finding a turd out there, or whatever. Your very next step is communication. And I believe if you listen to this closely, that if you have an encounter, that your only hope of coming away from that encounter with anything is to try to communicate with them, because they can. We know they have their own language. I don't speak it. You don't speak. I don't know anybody that speaks it, but it's a proven scientific fact. So if you want, I'll start off with that morning.
Yeah, please do. Yeah, please do. And I will interject, Paul. So I will say this for you. You're going with me when it comes to First Nations, and I've been doing this for a while. I've spoke to many people, First Nations people, the average American, white folk, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that there is something spiritual, something, I don't know what the word would be, maybe supernatural or paranormal. And I'm out of the ape camp. I believe that there's something more than just the hybrid humanoid or humanid, right? So with that being said, that's kind of where I stand. I dig where you're going with this. Sorry, Paul, you were saying?
Ernie, before you get into that story of your encounter, let's start with the fishing trip, fishing trip story.
Oh, yeah. That would be the Cobble Mountain area, which Drake Mountain is right next to. Not far away. I'm just going to say, like, maybe like 3-4 miles from there. It's in the reservoir is actually in Blandford. The reservoir near Drake Mountain is called the Granville Reservoir. Okay.
Right.
The reservoir that you just asked me about, right next to there, I'm fishing. We weren't supposed to be in there. We're not supposed to be in there. Okay. And we've had things happen in there while we were fishing. It was a fun and game thing where you're using a black jitterbug. You have to know what a jitterbug looks like. You're using it at night, and your only hope of really catching a nice bass is you can hear it hit the bait. It'll make a popping sound like you threw a rock in there. So I would tease my brother by throwing a rock over where I thought he was, and he'd throw a rock back. Well, guess what? Those rocks turned into boulders, and we weren't throwing them. But we always thought that it was each other. Okay, and that's a real history thing on my brother and I being in there, and it's happened. There's been encounters with other fishermen in that area. There are also 2 cemeteries in that reservoir, the Cobble Mountain Reservoir, and they're both called Warfield Cemetery. One of them is not spoken of. The second one was we'll call it made, okay, because they didn't want to be drawing attention to that, and that was from the Underground Railroad, and that's where a lot of the people went to settle in that. They had their own little community right in there. In that cemetery in there, there's a lot of gravestones that say "Killed by the Beast" in there. I've heard of other accounts in there where hunters at different times were found with their necks broken in there. Trip and fall, whatever. I passed it all off. That's just whatever. You don't think of those things. If you're not looking for a squirrel when you're out hunting, you're not going to see the squirrels. You're gonna try to find whatever it is that you're hunting for. They might pass you by or whatever. You're not going to notice them. So we didn't notice them, even though we had seen tracks. And hindsight is everything. Looking back, yeah, we've seen tracks. So I hope that answers that, Paul, for you in the fishing experiences in there.
Well, wasn't there? What was the story that you guys had to leave the area? You heard.
Yeah, we were actually in there hunting. My great uncle had brought us in there hunting.
Yeah, that's it.
And we had split up. We had walkie-talkies on us, and it was protocol for us that we had we'll call it an LZ area. Okay, for people might know that it's easier for them to recognize that if you watch movies or whatever. And we would plan our hunt, and the 2 older hunters would go on the adjacent fire trail or fire roads, that were maintained by the Boy Scouts or whatever in there, in case there was forest fires. And my brother and I had gone up, and it was probably about 6+ inches of snow. were told that if we came across anything strange or unusual to let them know. And we did. We came across barefoot tracks that morning in there. And my brother and I had already scouted another area. We wanted that area, but my great uncle couldn't go too far anymore, so we wound up going there. And so we immediately clicked the walkie-talkie. That was a signal, meet us back. Something happened, So we met my dad and my great uncle back in that area, in our starting point, and we told them what we found. And they started speaking French. My father came over and he said, "Look," he said, "stay here. We're going to go check it out." They were gone, I don't know, I'm going to say, it was a long time ago, maybe 15 minutes, I'll say. Could have been a little bit longer. And they came back and they're talking French again. When they didn't want you to know what the hell was going on, the elders would speak in French. All right. So he comes over to my brother and I, my dad, and he says, "We have to leave here now. We're not allowed to hunt here. We shouldn't be near hunting, and we have to leave." I was totally like, what, who's, so there's some barefoot naked man running around in the wintertime, in the snow up here, telling us that we can't be here. Okay. It kind of ticked me off, but they're telling you, and you did what they told you to do, but they would threaten you with leaving you there, maybe.
and no one's ever said why you had to leave. You just
never
get out of there.
Absolutely never told us one single thing that these things existed. They knew, and in the end, I'll tell you that. Well, I'll tell you now is after my encounter, I sat down with my dad, and it was about 2 weeks later. I mean, I was just totally shaking for the longest time, and I sat down at the kitchen table over his house, and I started telling him about my encounter, and he picked his head up and he looked at me just as much as I'm looking at you, and he says, "I know. I'd really go if you had been anybody else, I would have come over to the top of that table and let you have one, because you knew, and you didn't think it was imperative to tell me that these things were out here. You knew, and I just let it go from there." I said, "That's fine."
So this first incident where you're told you had to leave, did you know that there was a possible Bigfoot in the area or anything like that before?
No, it was really the furthest thing from my mind. I remember seeing something maybe in National Geographic or something like that. I was always interested in those things, and I looked at it and I said, "Well, that's a I would love to see one. I would love to see something like this. Every kid's dream, every football player's dream to catch that bomb, the big long bomb, and it was my dream to see." Man, I would love to see something like that, but you pass it off. You totally pass it off. I just figured that that was one, and it's probably dead now, and that was out where Bluff Creek or California or whatever the case may be. And I'm like, I'm way the hell up in Massachusetts. I'm like, what are the chances that walked all the way up here to get an apple, one of the beautiful New Jersey black twigs that we grow up there? What are the chances of that?
Yeah.
So no, I washed it off. There's no chance of seeing something like that, and that's exactly what's going on. They knew.
Yeah, and like you said, what are the chances of you seeing it again or having an encounter again?
Exactly. But little did I realize that I actually from taking topographical maps of the area and compass bearings on deer when they rub on the trees, it's actually like a fence line. You can figure out their comings and goings and the terrain and everything else. I would mark off food sources along the way and this and that. I had come across in the exact area where I had my encounter, Drake Brook, probably within, I'll say 50 yards from where I actually had the encounter. The brook came out of the mountain right there, and it was wintertime, and I was tracking deer, and I used a small pair of binoculars, so I'm not on the trail, on their run or anything, tracking them. I'm off of it, not giving even any scent behind, so I planned on hunting that area. And I spotted a hole in the ice on Drake Brook. And it just drew my attention because of the way the hole was. It wasn't like from a limb or anything. It was formed. It was the ice was pulled up like an ice fisherman when you see him dig a hole. So I kind of I call it scooching up, but I kind of get up to it and really check the area out. And it was a hole punch in the ice. And then I noticed something. I noticed that it was rubbed out. Somebody, and I'm figuring poachers did it because we had gone in after poachers before. Our history of hunting, the wardens would ask us to go in and look for lost people and find poachers and report back to them where they were and everything. And I noticed the tracks were rubbed out, so I immediately thought it was a poacher, but I was looking for what they rubbed it out on, so I'm squatting right there, and I knew they were rubbed out. And there was a mountain laurel bush out of my reach, pretty well out of my reach, and I noticed that a small branch was broken off. That was what was used to rub the tracks out, and it was neatly thrown back into the mountain laurel bush. That's right about where I had my encounter. I'll say within 50 yards of that. So hindsight again. I'm thinking that it's a person. I like to go in where there are no people, but I'm thinking if somebody's in there poaching deer or whatever, because they're really not supposed to be in that area at all. Okay, but that was one of the signs that I've seen in there, and of course people ask me if I've seen structures or anything like that. I've seen so many fallen trees in the woods. Go to the dollar store, or go to the Salvation Army and see if you can pick up that little game called pick up sticks and take them and throw them on the ground and see how many they can take across, or throw them in a bush and see what they do.
Let me ask you, Ernie, you just brought up the thing about structures. I will say this. I'm not a big structure guy. Mm-hmm. Now, if you show me one 50 foot tall, an X, and it looks like with the root ball uploaded and the other end stuck in the ground, yeah.
Yep.
So, yeah, that is fascinating, and that's something that man does not do. But let me ask you, if you are an advocate of the tree structures, you believe in them, what do you think that signifies if, in fact, Bigfoot or Sasquatch is putting these in the forest?
Yeah, you can see it puts a smile on my face. Not too many people will ask me that. I believe I know what that is. It's like a deer will mark its territory, a dog will mark its territory. I know that in this area right now there are clans and there's family units in this area. I know there's been for a long time. How long they live, I have no idea. But I believe they're marking their territory. And the guy that's in this area right now is he came across an X that was put on a brook to basically don't go across the brook. And I told him, why don't you just try sitting down right there and being at peace and leaving a gift at that right there. So people hearing this, think about this for a minute, okay? They don't want you to go that way. It took him a couple of weeks, 3 or 4 times he went there. And the last time he went there, he noticed that the X was removed. And now it's going up the river, an X crossing. Don't go up the river, but you can cross here. So I believe they're marking their territory, and that'll go right along with some of these like teepee structures and things like that. I think I know why they're using them. I'm pretty sure people like Randy Harrington and so forth, they know why they could be using them also. But I firmly believe that, like you're saying, Rob, when you come across a tree that's been uprooted, if you even come across a branch that's thicker than 1 inch thick that was twisted, don't even think that your average man went out in the woods and took a 1 inch limb and twisted it like a pretzel.
Let me tell you something, Ernie. Yes, Ernie, thank you for that. I'm going to tell you something from experience. When I started getting involved with this, and we hear about the twists, a grown man, average strength, went in, and I tell you what, the limb, like you mentioned, a half inch, this limb was a 1/4 inch. It was wet. I remember they being wet, and I grabbed it. You can't snap it. I'm trying to twist it. My Lord, my forearms were getting tired because I couldn't do what these things can do. And you just can't. Yeah. It's not possible for a human being. So I'm trying to say. So something with enormous strength is the only thing that can do that. And to see these 1 inch snaps with the twist several times over, that's not a man. That's not no kid playing around the forest.
No, people have no idea. What drives me nuts is the fact that people will say, and Paul's heard me say this before, that people will say, well, I seen it and it was like 10 feet tall. How do you know that? How do you know that? You have to be very skilled at being able to tell me how far something was in the woods away from you. Don't assume it. Take a rock and go out in your yard, measure up 35 yards, start throwing a rock. Now go out in the woods and put a target up, and don't even measure the distance, and see if you can hit that target. See if you actually know. Have somebody else put the target there. It takes some skill to do that. These. I'm going to get into the story, but these things are super strong. People that claim that they can they outran them back to their car. You're living in fantasy land. I'm not going to hold on with that fantasy. I've seen them run, and I'm going to tell you right now, I can shoot a deer on the run. And this thing could catch a deer. And if it can catch a deer, and you tell me you outran it, then God darn it, you ought to be in the next Olympics, because you sound old. You better go drink and watch this guy run. Okay, but if you guys are ready, I'll start you off on.
Actually, Ernie, before we get into your story, we have a question on here, Tyler. Have you seen any trident-looking tree structures? I have a couple throughout my property, and they look very old, but intended almost like.
Okay, trident. You mean like a tree bent over a pathway, or is that what you're speaking of as a trident? Or are you talking
probably
about,
yeah?
Okay, if you're speaking of that, I can tell you this right now. Think along the lines of the trapper. If I want to trap something, I have to funnel them. And if I funnel them, I want to get them to put their head down. Now, when you get an animal to put its head down, its peripheral disappears. It's not looking up anymore. It's not going to see any movement up in front of it. And if you're in the right position, it's not going to smell you either.
Mm-hmm.
That could be, I'm just going to say, that could be, obviously, and I have seen that, and I have also seen that in a kill box. Look that up for people that don't understand what a kill box is. It's a kill zone. It's an ambush point. And I was out hiking with a guy, and we went up on top of a ridge. They love to take the high ground, and they'll have one up on the high ground watching down below, because you can see a lot more down ridge than you can ever see up ridge. You would never see a person up ridge unless they wanted you to see them or they were silhouetted. So they're up there, and all they need to do is whoop, whistle, or knock on a tree just a little bit. The deer's not going to get scared, but whatever's laying down near that funnel point will have a good chance of catching whatever it is. So I think that's a good possibility. What's going on? I don't believe it's.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I don't believe it's a portal.
Portal. So many things to talk about. We haven't even gotten into the meat of your encounter, have we?
Oh yeah. We will be getting into some good stuff here in a second.
We've been teasing it like crazy, though.
Yeah, no, I feel for a 90-minute show, we might go 180. I just don't know. The blinds and the booze are gone. Paranormal Paul and BMR are in control tonight. We might just have a marathon of it. Get your coffee ready.
You're good. Yeah. You're gonna find in this story, this is where Matt Hemsch and I come together, because I was drawn to his encounter with Michael Anthony. Okay, and I picked it up on the half show, and I replayed it, and I immediately called Michael, and I said, I need to talk to the guy now. I need to talk to him, because I've heard Martin Grove's story. I've heard a bunch of other stories, and when you hear this, is I believe, and it's our objective to draw the two camps together, because I believe that they're working, like, have a symbiotic relationship with Dogman to a point, because monkeys in India are known for kidnapping puppies, and they actually use the puppies. They feed the puppies, and they use the puppies to guard them, to alert them to things that are going on. But you'll extrapolate that information out of this encounter. It's like I said, it would have been so easy for me to walk to a bar and sat down and said to the bartender, you bring me over a whiskey, make that 5. Bring me over 5 shots of whiskey, and I'll tell you a story.
Yeah.
About how I seen a Sasquatch or a Sabe people, but no. There's no way I could walk in and tell this story to anybody, because there was no absolutely 30 36 years ago. No way
that
I thought were they going to ever listen to something like this. So
let's get into it.
All right. Here's the meat, potatoes, and the gravy. Get your cigar and get your bourbon ready.
This is my type of story right here.
Yeah, no bread, no garlic bread. Okay. Yeah. So, anyways, as you've heard me say, I use topographical maps of the areas, and I used compass bearings, to go into the area. And that morning, I had determined back at my house how I knew which way the wind was blowing from down where my house was located, a couple of miles away. And sure enough, it was on one side of Drake Mountain. There was an old apple orchard, a lot of old farmlands up there. If you get back into those woods, you'll find abandoned farmlands with apple trees, pear trees, plum trees, all of that stuff still growing. And I knew that the wind was going to be coming up over from that side of the mountain down onto the Granville side of the reservoir and the Cobble Mountain Reservoir. So I chose to park my car down there by those reservoirs and walk across the main drag and take an access road down. It was probably about a mile that I had to walk. I believe it's probably a little bit gravel right now, but it was all dirt back then. Of course, it would be. And there was a rock there, a boulder I used to always like to see, and we called that Indian Rock, and it had three faces on it. As you approach one face, face it, another face, walk by it, another face. We never knew who put that there, but it turns out that that's part of what they called Uncomit's Path that nobody knew about until recently, until 2 years ago. And that's what I chose to hunt because nobody was in there. So it was crisp out that morning when I went in. And when I say crisp, it was like there wasn't really snow on the ground. It was the first week of December, unusual, no snow. And some of the leaves were a little bit frozen, but the trail going up zigzag kind of up the mountain and dogleg back down the other side, it had a lot of flat rocks on there. And I knew from scouting the area that more than likely I knew where the deer's beds were. I marked them on my topo, and I knew they were using this one particular area. As I got 3/4 of the way up the mountain, there was three big boulders there. I used to look at them like they were like Stonehenge. One of them was 40 foot tall, and it's called Lookout Boulder. And sure enough, as I approached that area, and I approached it as quietly as I could, as I jumped the deer. If you've hunted, you can tell the sound of a deer when it jumps up compared to a rabbit or a squirrel, unless you got like a 150-pound squirrel running around. It's a deer. So they jumped up, and I knew they were headed towards the top of the ridge, straight away from me. So this path that I was on actually came up to the side of the mountain, and then it paralleled that top of the ridge. So my objective was main objective was to harvest a deer. So I had to get out in front of them and set up an ambush point. And as they moved, I moved. I couldn't see them, but I could hear them very well. And there was a lot of browse in there. Browse is like little pieces of tree limbs that are very, very fine. They can eat, has leaves on them from like spearmint to beech nut and things like that. So I could hear them stop. In hindsight, I never realized. I assumed I could hear something on the other side of them moving. I thought that was maybe a bigger buck. So, and I've seen deer drive other deer ahead of them, and the does particularly. And as they kept going towards the part that I was trying to get to, my ambush point, I would stop, walk, like a two-step. You try to sound a little bit like a four-legged animal rather than a bipedal animal, a two-legged animal. And it was working. I was getting out in front of them, and I finally got out in front of them. But right where that corner is, where it dog legs back down, and as I got out in front of them, there's a stone wall that runs from the path I was on to the dogleg path that goes down the other side. Where they were, it was a bunch of saplings, and a lot of beech nuts in there. Where I was, between me and that stone wall was probably, guesstimate like maybe 40 yards or so, somewhere around there. And there was some big pine trees in there, but they were scattered. They were far apart. So I knew I had my position. And I looked at my area around there as I was coming into my ambush point, and there was nothing there. I didn't want to scare anything up like a grouse or anything like that to alert the deer. Mm-hmm. So I took up my position, like half squatting, and as the deer kept coming forward, I noticed moving off my peripheral, off my 9 o'clock on my left-hand side. And I took a look at it. I had my 12-gauge shotgun on me, semi-auto, loaded with slugs, and I had a handgun on me too. And I thought that was my deer right there. And you hear a lot of stories about people saying, I thought it was a deer first or a bear. Yeah, you can mistake those things. A lot of people mistake those stumps that are out there, and they got to draw red circles around them. You can mistake anything out there. Well, it started to hunch up towards the tree a little bit, but I'm still trying to remain cognizant of those deer coming over the stone wall, because in the state of Massachusetts, you cannot shoot a deer that's on the ground, it's sleeping or anything like that. That's what I was told. I mean, I guess the wildlife officials can tell, because you have to take it to a checking station. They take a piece of the meat and they test it and everything. You cannot get away with anything in that state unless you're poaching, and even then you got to watch out. They'll find you. But I'm trying to maintain my ability to watch both what's going on here, because a little bit more, and it did. But now it's bulkier, so I'm like, well, that's not a deer. I mean, it's shorter, it's bulkier, it's a bear. I've seen bear out there, it's a bear, but it had its head around the other side of the tree. So my first instinct was, well, if this thing does get wind of me, I don't know, it's going to bum rush me, what it's going to do. I got my shotgun on it, and it just hunched straight up to the tree. I said, it's not a bear. I said, that's a guy. He must have been napping right there. There's another guy in here hunting with me. I knew that what I needed to do was move up a little bit, because he had his head around the other side of the tree. And if the deer came over that stone wall, a lot of people in Massachusetts do buckshot, double odd buck. And I didn't want to get hit with some stray buckshot.
Ernie.
Because he wouldn't know I was there. Yeah.
Ernie, really quick, because you have a mic in front of you, people are just saying your volume's going up and down. Just, I don't know what you're speaking in. Yeah, just.
I'll lean forward here. How's that? Better?
We sounded fine to me. Just several people in chat mentioned it, so I just thought I'd share it.
Okay. I hope this helps.
Sounds louder.
Yeah, it started looking more like a guy. So I worried a little bit. So I knew that what I had to do is I had to move my position up a little bit, scooch up a little bit, so that if he stuck his head around my side of the tree, if the deer came over that stone wall, that he would see me in his peripheral and not take the shot. Particularly if it ran between us. So it was pretty much at that point that he started standing up, that this knockdown, drag out on the other side of that stone wall started to ensue over there. I mean, I could hear boulders. I wasn't just hearing branches snapping. I was hearing limbs snapping. I was hearing like somebody playing baseball over it. It was a butt whipping going on over there. I've heard bucks fighting, and I've seen them hitting up on trees, and this was pretty bad. And the guy that I thought was a guy, I see him still getting up. He is the biggest man I've ever seen in my life, and it was at that point that it really drew my attention, that I highly suspected that this was not a human being at all. And he was hugging that tree. He was right on the tree with his head on the other side of it, facing away from me. And I could see the back of his head on the tree. And I'm looking for a mark on the tree. I'm looking for a little tiny little branch, a piece of moss, and I found one on there. And I said, I got to remember this. No matter how it turns out, I got to go over and measure that. And that's when he kind of like came almost around my side of the tree, stuck his head on my side of the tree. And he looked over at me, looked back over that stone wall, and he snapped his head right back at me. Like he couldn't believe I was there. It was that instant. It was that instant. It was completely clear to me that this was not a man. This is not a man like Rob or Paul or myself. This was definitely the word that came to my mind. This was a Sasquatch. I couldn't believe what I was looking at.
And how close were you to this?
At that point, I was about 35 yards away. We later on dropped a pin on that, through GPS, and it was like 37 yards or 38 yards, which means I wouldn't miss you with a shot or an arrow. But, I considered it to be pretty close. And when he took that double look at me, he proceeded to step around my side of the tree. He had his right arm on the tree. He swung his right leg completely around to my side of the tree, and then his left leg as he pushed off, because he was almost hugging that tree, and faced me, broadside to me, faced me. And I knew then and there that I had my 12 gauge right on him. I didn't know what was going to happen. And that ruckus over there was still pretty much going on over there. During the whole encounter, I had checked my breath, because the temperature outside, I could still see my breath, which way it was blowing. It was blowing basically off to my right. I remember checking my wristwatch. I can't tell you to this day what time it was on my wristwatch. Only that it was 10 minutes after the hour, 10, 11 minutes after the hour. And a plane flew overhead going towards Bradley International Airport. I knew that, and like I said, I didn't know which way it was going to go. A lot of people say, well, I can't believe you didn't run. Well, I'm just a fool. I'm just an inquisitive individual.
No, you are inquisitive.
I can. You don't know how inquisitive I get.
Well, we're going to continue on, because as I made mention earlier, we're not going to take a 5-minute break. We have to take like that 10-minute lull so we can do some edits.
Lull. I like lulls.
Yeah, so you can kick back for a minute, and I'm going to take a little longer, 10 seconds. First of all, everybody, please subscribe to my new buddy, Paranormal Paul, for Paranormal Among Us. Got a new podcast and YouTube channel. And really briefly, Ernie, do you got any social media that you want to take the time to tell everybody? And we'll do it again at the end of the show as well.
Yeah. Matt M. Straight now, Planet 412, Michael Anthony, Paul Frazier. You can pick him up if you search for it. He runs a group out here in Ohio. Very clean group. And of course, I'll mention the guy that is doing research right now. He has a little channel, and it's hard to find anybody in that area to get on his show, or anybody, as you can probably imagine. But that's pretty much it.
And now we'll post your links later in the end of this video for everybody else. Don't forget, if you're new here, subscribe again. Paranormal Among Us, Paranormal Paul. Welcome to the podcasting world. I know you're not a rookie. You've done other things. Oh, yeah. Don't forget to subscribe to, of course, the Blondes and the Booze Paranormal Podcast, Texas Front Porch, and, of course, yours truly, Bigfoot, Michigan Rob, if not already. Mondays is Texas Front Porch at 8 Central. Tuesdays, Beyond BMR, 8 Central. Wednesdays, Diva Dimension, 8 Central. Brunch with Bigfoot, Michigan Rob, Thursday, 1 in the East. Blondes and Booze, Thursday nights, 8 Central. Friday nights, we mix the woo in with the blues. The booze.
Go Blues.
Friday. Go Blues. The Blues. Yeah. Hockey. St. Louis Blues. There we have it. I knew that was. I
get my Blues in there.
That was a Freudian slip. We talked about your hockey team earlier today. And then, of course, Texas got something going on called Infamous Minds. It's True Crime. It's Sunday. It's 6. And don't forget, at 5 on Sunday, it's Central. Brandy and Randy, Truth or Tinfoil. Found on Truth or Tinfoil Station and Texas Station. So, I think we got 80 seconds there of a break. And with that being said, I got to let my dog out. Paul, take over. Ernie, continue. I'll be back in a second.
So, Ernie, when you're when he turns around and he's looking at you and you, I probably would have been frozen in fear, but I mean, you were just calm, cool, and collected.
I was deeply concerned.
Yeah.
Because I was, as much as it was I'll say, flabbergasted to see me standing there.
Mm-hmm.
I was equally flabbergasted to see it standing there.
Yeah.
Completely surprised. So we had a little, it wasn't a Mexican stand-up, but we had a little bit of like, are you real? That's the way that's what I received out of on him. I don't know if you want me to go on with the story here or what we're doing here, but
yeah.
So anyways, he stepped away from that tree to face me, and then he actually did a hand gesture. And this is when I tell people that, what's your next step? There should be communication, because obviously what you're going to hear here is imperative information to obtain just that. Okay, if they have language and you've studied that, and they definitely do have language, and you understand that they can use sign language too. And Native Americans used it, because if you study that also, you'll find out that the Hopi didn't speak Apache and the Apache didn't speak Abenaki. So how did they communicate? They used sign language when they met each other. And so did the trappers. When they went from nation to nation, they used sign language. And that's what you're going to hear right here.
Yeah.
When he stepped away from that tree and he broadsided me directly towards me, he put both hands, palms facing me, fingers towards the sky, elbows in. Yeah, like that, just like that, deliberate, not like that, right there. And he pumped them at me, about chest high, close to chest high, but elbows in. And I immediately took that to mean, hold on a second, stop. And
now at this time, did you still have your shotgun pointed at him?
Yeah, but now I'm lowering it.
Yeah,
because I'm wondering exactly what the heck is going on here. What is this thing doing? Like I said, I would have been fine. I've seen the Sasquatch go down to the bar, get a couple drinks, but who's going to hear this?
Right.
36 years. In the past 3 years, it's been out there a few times, yet people still go and want to bang on trees. What's your plan? What's your plan if you come across one? You gonna whoop at it and scream and run, or are you gonna try to communicate? Because obviously that's what we need to do. And the Mary Greens out there have done such things as that. There's stories that we may feel that are way out there are Osterman. There are things that are correlate in each story that you can hear that are familiar in these stories. But he pumped his hands at me and proceeded to walk towards me. And hindsight is everything. It was looking back on it, it was he knew how to approach me. Think about that when you watch David Paulides 411. 411. He knew how to approach me. He pumped his hands and then continued to walk towards me. And as he walked towards me, he made another hand gesture towards me. He took his right arm, fist, pointer finger, just like that, pointed right towards my chest, middle of my chest. And then he pointed towards his own chest. And that's a signal that if he used two fingers, that means greater than. If he touched himself first with it, that means I'm greater than you with one finger. He did not do that. He used one finger towards my chest, one finger towards his chest. We were equal. We were brothers. He continued to walk towards me. He was winning my confidence, and I lowered my shotgun even more. And as he got closer to me, he made another hand gesture towards me. That hand gesture was, again, elbows in. His hands were straight out in front of him, but the elbows in, close to his hips, and his palms are straight down. And then he turned his palms over. And it was at that point that I'm thinking to myself, is there going to come a time where I'm going to have to communicate something back to him? Because he's getting closer, and I really don't want to be the idiot, and have this thing go off on me, thinking I'm some kind of a challenged individual that I can't do anything, and he's going to get mad at me and probably slap me into next year or whatever. So I'm really trying to suck in all this, and I'm also trying to suck in what he looks like. You know, his arms, his hair, his eyes, everything, his skin tone, everything about him. He continues walking at me, and he's getting closer. And he put his palms down, and he put his palms up in the same position. He put his palms straight up. I took that to mean that they didn't have any food. And then it became completely clear to me when he put his palms up. It became completely clear to me he was asking me for food. That's what it looked like. That's what I felt. And then it dawned on me that there's definitely more than one. I'm glad I didn't shoot them. And they were in there hunting the same deer as me. And because of those hand gestures, you know, I don't have no food. I'm trying to get food. You got food. And he gets closer to me, and he does another hand gesture towards me, like what he had been doing wasn't enough for me. You know, I mean, you can only imagine. That's the reason why I say that I prayed that somebody would come out with this. You know, somewhere somebody has to come out with this, and they had the same thing happen. There is one guy, I don't think he's alive, same exact area. I've only heard from somebody else, and I cannot find this man. He was bow hunting, but it came closer to me, and it took one finger and put it over my left shoulder, took another finger, took the same finger and put it over my right shoulder. I figured it was asking me where I came from. You know, how did I get there? Where did I came from? Did you come from over there? Did you come from over there? I don't know. That's what I was assuming. And at that point, he was close enough to me. You can all be the judge of this. He was close enough to me that he put his arm out and his hand right in front of me. So I had to look down at his palm. He pointed to his palm.
Wow.
And I looked at his palm, and being a fighter, I'm trained not to take my eyes off your shoulders or your head. It's going to give you a way on which way you're going to move. And I'm dropping my right arm to my handgun, and I just felt to this day, even when I talk about it, I can feel the grip on. I had a Packmeyer grip on my handgun. I could just feel that Packmeyer hitting the palm of my hand, and I didn't have a purchase on the gun. And he tapped his finger. I mean, he tapped his finger, and I got the message. I looked back at his palm again, straight down in front of me. And his hands look the same as my hands, same as your hands, clean hands, fingers. I'll tell you the skin tone in a minute here, but there was something about his palm that struck me as really strange. His palms are the same as my palms, except for one definite thing. He had no lifeline. There was no lifeline.
Wow.
He had blue eyes. I measured him off on this tree after you're only halfway through this story, believe it or not. About halfway. I measured him off on this tree later, and he was 7 foot 8 inches tall, and I guesstimated his weight as me being a fighter is in the northern vicinity of 500 pounds. And if Andre the Giant ever came up against anything like this thing, I can assure you, would single-handedly, one-armed, grabbed him and thrown him over a top rope. That's what this thing looked like. I've never seen anything this massive look like this cut up.
Wow.
Anywhere that you have hair, they have hair. So if you look at the backs of your hands, you have hair on the backs of your fingers, your knuckles, beyond your knuckles, the back of your hands. It's longer than ours. It's forearms. I've seen its forearms because it held its palm out to me. Its palms were not the same color as its skin, as you can imagine. And I'm gonna tell you that the skin tone was. Some people will say it had black hair. Well, some people with dark brown hair look like their hair is black, and it's not. It's dark brown.
Right.
And that's what I picked up in some of the sunlight that was peeping through right in that area. And its skin tone was the same. So if I put him out at 50 yards, we'll say 50 yards, okay, you wouldn't know where the hair started on his face, where the hair ended. You wouldn't be able to tell if he was completely covered with hair or not. This was a Neanderthal, Native American, African American looking individual. with blue eyes. Its skin tone was dark, deep, like Jamaican, deep dark brown, like almost like an ashy black, almost like, but brownish. I guess you'd call it. It's hard to describe that.
And Ernie, really quick, I had to step away for that brief second. This is a Sasquatch.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. Yep. That's exactly the words that I used when we stepped away from that tree. It was a Sasquatch, and to myself, I'm like, geez. But after he did that, his palm and everything, I repeated back some of the gestures, and it was at the point that I got to the gesture of pointing over his left and over his right that he turned a quarter turn away from me. I guess that might have been the signal that I was telling him to beat Peter, get out of there or something, which was a disappointment to me because I wanted to know more about him. I mean, he seemed friendly, but I mean, again, David Polite is missing 411. It's if you think about a pedophile or something, they know how to approach, or a mass murderer or whatever. They know how to approach. This he knew how to approach me, so it's disturbing now to think about something like this. But he turned quarter turn away from me. He nodded at me first, turned quarter turn away from me, and looked over that stone wall, and he could see more than me, obviously. I didn't even come up to his shoulder. I'm a lot of guys will say rounded up, call me 6'3". Okay. I didn't even come up to his shoulder.
Wow.
And he looked over there and looked back at me again. And looked back over that stone wall, and he put both hands up to his mouth like you would be yelling to somebody, like a megaphone. And he let out 3 whoops. Yes, sir. Yes, Paul. And in between each whoop, very deliberate, was about a second and a half, because I was still trying to take in as much information as I possibly could, including the length of his hair, everything about him. Okay, except for if it really was a male. Okay. Some things I didn't want to give him the wrong impression. He was checking me out. I mean, heavily checking me out, approaching me. And I don't know if he looked down there. You couldn't see on all that hunting clothing. But
how you doing, Sasquatch? How you doing?
Yeah. Hello, big fella.
Yeah,
those sexy blue eyes.
There might have been a situation.
Yeah, that might have been the end.
I might have chance taken the shot. But he let out the 3 whoop noises. And then he did something else. Up until that point, I say 3 years ago, nobody ever seen him whoop. Nobody. There's no account out there that's seen him actually whoop. There wasn't. Maybe there is now. Maybe somebody will come forward. But they do whoop. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you something else they do. This thing whistled like a man. This thing whistled like somebody was in my hunting party. And we would use that type of whistle. If we came across track and we split up, we would let one guy go behind the tracker to watch the tracker track while the other 2 guys went right and left. And we would communicate back and forth whistling, whether we see something or what's going on or come on over here. That's the whistle he did. It was that whistle, come on over here. He gave a hand signal and he pointed right directly back to the area towards the area he came from. He looked back at me, he nodded his head, and he didn't run in that direction, back towards that tree, beyond that tree. He went out to about 55 yards away in that direction. And when I say he didn't run, he didn't walk, he didn't lumber. He was as smooth as silk. He just freaking strode right out there. And once he got out there, he stopped, he turned back towards me, and that's when I heard something coming from the other side of the stone wall. It sounded like a freight train coming through those saplings and stuff, like hell bent on getting to where it needed to go. And there, I knew it because they had to cross Drake Brook, and I knew it instantly right before I caught vision of it that it was another one. I'm glad I didn't shoot because God only knows how many there really were. This one was cinnamon colored, and it went running over to him. And I mean, this thing was fast. This thing was literally elbows and heels. This thing was taking a stride like you wouldn't believe, and it was not bobbing. It was flat, smooth. if I had to hit it with a round on the run, I would have had a tough time. I would have had to plan a shot out in front of it like I was bird hunting or something. Wow. It was very, very fast. It got out to that first one that I seen there and stopped. And that's where they did something else. I heard them do that samurai chatter. I had never heard that before. And I don't know how long it was after that, because I searched everything. I mean, I searched everything to find out about these things. And there's got to be somebody out there who's like, please, God, there's got to be somebody out here that has had something like this happen. Somebody, please. And I came across Ron Moorhead. And I don't believe that he actually ever seen him. It was a samurai chatter. And when I heard that, I got up. I wanted to scream. I just wanted to, somebody give me his phone number. I just wanted to yell at him, say, Ron, you know what you got? That's them. I can officially tell you that that's them. Well, they had this little conversation there. And I'm going to assume they were talking about me, and talking about why do you have to come over here, because they were kind of facing me, and the big one pointed directly at me. And that littler one, he came up to probably, I'm going to say it, because I don't know if it was a male or a female, just it was cinnamon colored. He came up to a little bit above the shoulder, so I probably put him at about 6'8", maybe, 6'5", 6'5", 6'8", right just above the shoulders. And he pointed at me, and that cinnamon colored one had to actually bend down a little bit to look at underneath the sapling, had a branch coming out, so it with a little bit of leaves on it, to look at me. And he doesn't that one doesn't double take on me. And I'm like, at that point right there, Rob and Paul, I was like saying to myself, I wonder where they're going. I'd like to probably follow them and see where they're going. See, do you live in trees, or what I heard on the other side of the stone wall, people who used to think 2-3 years ago, they don't eat meat. I got news for you. You don't get that big from eating mushrooms. Okay, they eat everything. Okay, and they definitely eat meat. They can definitely get in a tree. People didn't believe that either. But he ratted me out to that one. That one did a double take on me, and then he does something else. He points to the little one, and he's instructing the little one to go to my right, and he does an arcing movement to where he wanted him to go. And then he points to his own chest. He pointed to his chest, and he points to his own chest. Like, he's going to go to the left. My left. And I'm saying to myself, that's pretty much solidifies it for me right there. They don't want me following them, and I'm not comfortable anymore. And I just started tingling. My spidey senses started tingling, and I said, well, I got to get the brass up. Where I got the brass up, I don't know where, but I got the brass. I said, I can't freeze. I can't freeze. I got to go over to the tree and measure up on that tree. So I walked over to the tree and stood up against the tree, and I put my head up behind the tree, put my hand up on top of my head, stepped away a little bit, and measured up with my fingers all the way up 7 foot 8 inches tall. I said, okay.
Wow.
Now I got to figure out, is this true? Is this a true measurement? The way you figure out a true measurement is a stride. So now I knew where it went through. It was an old, dry, vernal pool, because it's first week of December up there. There's nothing in the vernal pool, but there's like ferns or whatever growing. So I could see where they were squashed down. There was no footprint indented into the ground, but I could definitely see where it left a track, we'll say. Okay. I said, all right, I got to try to make that stride. I couldn't make the stride, so I said, okay, I got to try to jump and make the stride. I still couldn't do it. I said, well, now I know I'm wasting time doing this, but I'm saying I got to do it. I said, now I got to jump. And I took a little tiny bit of a run to start and jumped, and I still fell short of it. And I said, okay, that thing's got to be 7 foot 8 inches tall. It's an inch tall, because I can't make that. And it didn't run, okay, and it wasn't full leg spread out on it. It just kind of smoothly went off with a good gait to him, And it was after that I pretty much I decided that maybe I should vacate the area and not go back the way that I came up there, because and I didn't go over to where that ruckus was going on with the deer, because I felt that I'm glad they got a deer, because who knows, maybe I would have been on the buffet table.
That could have been you, yeah.
You know, it could have been me. You know, and I didn't need to see their kill, and I didn't want them to get the wrong impression that I was going to try to take any part of it. I was not entitled to it.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my upbringing. I didn't take it down. I'm not entitled to that. I don't need to see it.
Well, then again, with the communication that you guys had and the trust that you two established, if you're going over there looking at their kill, the other one might have taken that as he's trying to steal our stuff. Let's get him. So yeah, good thing you didn't do that.
That's what I was thinking. So I took advantage of the situation at that point and decided I'm going to go straight back, because I knew where the compass bearing was towards my vehicle, and that was the steepest part of Drake Mountain. And I do. When I used to go hunting, I would carry a knapsack on me with survival gear, which I strongly recommend everybody. Don't be fools. You know, if you think somebody's going to come looking for you within a couple of hours of you getting lost or injured out there, you're a fool. It's not going to happen. Not for at least 24 hours or better, way better than that. They're not going to look for you. And I had rope on me in case I got a good sized buck. I could hang it in a tree and keep it away from predators or anything like that. And going down that side of the mountain, I figured that, you know, it's pretty wide open. If anything wanted to come up from my left or my right, you'd have to go through an area on each side that was 600 to 800 yards where I could see. Even though I had a shotgun, I could see you coming. And there was big enough trees on it in spots that I could get behind that tree if you decided you wanted to throw a boulder at me or something, you know. And I would use my rope to just whip it around a tree just to keep my balance and everything. I had a makeshift sling on my shotgun, and I wanted to be able to have access to it quickly if need be. I mean, for some reason, I just at that point I just didn't trust what was really going on, even though it had won me over and it didn't mean me any harm. It was very, I mean, to me, it was a very peaceful experience that seems a bit far out there for some people, but I try to tell people that you need to take the next step. And if you remember any part, just remember exactly the hand signals, because they do understand that, and don't think you can use American Sign Language. You can probably use a little bit of it on them. At least you're trying to communicate.
Yeah.
But it's some parts of Native American Sign Language. Even then, you have to know, you know, the Apache Sign Language is going to be different from the Hopi and so on and so forth. This was pretty easy, I thought, for me to understand until the point of, you know, pointing. Maybe he was trying to tell me that maybe I should leave, you know, before his friends got wind of me or something, but it didn't turn out that way. So I had to wash that away. I think it was, where did you come from? How did you get to this point where I didn't see you? I think that's what it was. And I think that when I seen it laying down near the tree or at the base of the tree, I think it was at an ambush point, a pinch point, and I think that it was down near that vernal pool, because it was a bit of a knoll right there, and I think it crawled up, because I didn't see anything there when I got to my first position right there.
And you would have seen that, anything.
I believe I would have seen that, and it was the movement that caught my eye in my peripheral, because I was trying to remain cognizant of everything that was going on. I was just totally stoked on. I got into my position. I want to get myself a deer. So that's pretty much it right there.
You know, a lot of to unpack here. I got to ask you. You know, I mean, first of all, thank you, I mean, thank you. These are great encounters, stories, and stories are not to be mixed with a story. These are things that have happened, actual events.
Yeah.
And we talked earlier about the woo. There's a couple of things that I picked up on. And the first one I do want to talk about is about the communication. And we talked a little bit about the woo earlier. And with the communication, have you come across anything? Now, I know what happens in certain cultures, certainly for some, not all, First Nations and other cultures, whether American, white folk, whatever nationality, the telepathic communication, the mind speak that we all hear about. I got several people that, one friend of mine says that they communicate with Bigfoot via mind speak. Have you heard of that? And is that something that you think goes on?
It could very well be. I mean, who am I to say anything is too far out there? You know, I have heard of that going on. Um, I've been doing a lot of research on this. I've talked to a lot of people on this, on what they're coming up with. This much I can tell you is watch the movie Lucy with Morgan Freeman, and in that movie Lucy with Morgan Freeman, you'll find something very interesting on where a human being stands next to a dog on our how much of our mind we can actually use, and a monkey, and to find out that actually a lot of animals that are out there can use infrasound and stuff, and we put the dolphin is higher than that. We're only on a level 10. Once we get up to like a level 25 or 30, we're able to do. If you watch the movie, you'll see what I mean.
I've seen it.
I know. Speak. Yeah. So is that a good possibility? I mean, Ron Moorhead, what is he looking at right now? He's looking at quantum physics right now. Could this very well be, because in Native American, we'll call them stories or really history or whatever, or prophecies, it's foretold that on the spiritual level, that in the end times they will come back to dance around the sacred fire with us one more time. And in some circles, it's known that they are going to fight the last battle with us, and it will be a spiritual battle. Are they here to teach us something, and we're just fools? We're not on their level, and we keep running away, banging on trees. Wouldn't it be awesome to be able to actually sit down like the Mary Greens or whatever and find out that this is true, and they're trying to teach us something so that perhaps we can walk through that veil?
Yeah. No, I agree with a lot of that, but you mentioned Ron Moorhead, because I talked to Ron Moore. He's been on my show twice in the past 18 months. Quantum Bigfoot, we talked about a lot of that. And when I talked with Ron, he said, Rob, 30 years ago, if you'd asked me, or if you were a believer in the woo, as we all say, the woo, for those that don't know what the woo is, paranormal, supernatural, weird stuff. He said, young man, I would have turned you around and sent you home. I don't believe in the woo. At this point in his life, his career, he's an Aper guy. Sierra Sounds comes out. A few other things with his research comes out. And now Ron tells me, now he wrote the book, The Quantum Bigfoot, as you said. He says, Rob, they're everything and anything. They're energy, mass and energy. They can transport. They can move from point A to point B, miles in minutes. He even went as far to tell me, which I was kind of surprised, Ernie, he wouldn't be surprised if some, not all, because there's so many different cryptids, Bigfoot, Sasquatch, that I think that are on our planet. There's not just one. There's different types. He would not be surprised if some of them were of an alien life or were from the future. I mean, Ron Moorhead told me that. Ron Moorhead, who 30 years ago told me, hey, man, if you believed in the woo, forget it. I might talk to you. But now, and that's what I love about him, being so open-minded, and the advancement and the things during his research that he's come across.
I'll tell you, I'll give the people who are listening right now a little bit of food to marinate your brain on. Think about. I'm going to tell you a little party trick first. Is where you can put a guy in a chair with I think it's, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fingers, just one finger from each person can pick that guy up, no matter what he weighs, over your head. Yeah. Over your head. We moved a car. 12 guys using 2 fingers each moved an entire car up over our head and put it back on a road. Now I'm going to tell you this is for something even at 500 pounds to grab a tree and do what it does to a tree or anything, there is something else that's going on there. After all these years that I've been I researched myself first. Probably Ron did. I researched me. Why me? What happened to me? What is all this stuff I've seen? Now I'm going to tell you, through all this research, I'm seeing what Ron Moorhead's seen too. Call it woo, whatever you may do, but you can try to explain to me that and there's eyewitness encounters of actually seeing them. You couldn't pull out a 2-foot high Christmas tree out of the ground and turn it upside down.
Like we talked about earlier. No.
Yeah, never mind something 10 feet tall and whip and pull it out of the ground like you're pulling a radish out of the ground. These things are so super smooth, super fast. The only thing that threw me off years and years ago is when people were talking about them being like ghosts or spiritual or whatever it was. The fact is, why they eating deer meat? I think they can go from right through the veil. I think they've learned how to do that. They can go right through the veil. That they can use part of their brain that we can't use. That they're using quantum physics. They can access that, just like in the movie Lucy. They can access that. And wouldn't it be so interesting if they were to be able to teach that to somebody that wanted to learn something like that? Wouldn't that be our next step to do that? And how are you going to get to that next step? You're going to need to ring my doorbell and knock on my door before you come into my house. We're going to have to get to know each other. And the same with them. We used to call it the cathedral in the woods. Yeah, I see that right there. Girls can lift 900 pounds. You know, that 900 pounds isn't anything compared to a tree, pulling a tree out of the ground.
That's tons.
The torque necessary for doing something like that is absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. So yeah, I do. I got to confess, I do. The dog man, I was completely on the other side of the fence until I met Matt and listened to his story. I met him in person, and I got to tell you right now, there's something going on right there. We talked like in the green room, the three of us.
Yeah, well, you know, I do believe Dogman are out there. That's again another show for that.
Yeah.
Paul, I had another question. I don't want to monopolize it. Then, Paul, whatever.
Go for it.
Ernie, you mentioned a couple of times in the show about David Paulides in the 411. Now, I like David Paulides and his work. I watched. I'm a subscriber. With the missing. Now, the one thing I've got to ask, because, and I'm not going to say or single out anybody, including Dave Paulides.
Yeah.
I think, though, first of all, I will say this: I don't trust Sasquatch or Bigfoot. I don't consider them, me personally. I don't consider them the friendly forest giant. I think they're like humans. I think some are good, some are bad. I'm not going to trust them, but because of what I experienced. But I do think it's unfair that some people say that Bigfoot or Sasquatch is the main factor behind 411. I don't buy that. I believe it's everything in the forest, all cryptids, paranormal, supernatural, human beings, and just dumbasses that just have no business being in the woods. So what's your thoughts on the 411 when it comes to Bigfoot? You think it's a part of it, not a part of it, but a small percentage?
I can tell you this and base it on my encounter. This thing knew how to approach me. It knew. I'm not bragging on myself, but if I got a 12 gauge on you, you're gonna have to win me over somehow. This thing knew how to get me to relax. It knew what to do. You know, I've heard several of those cases there. I'm with you 100% on that, Rob. There's many reasons why people disappear in those woods, and quite obviously, again, I'll just go back to Matt there. I was on the other side of that fence on there, but I had to stay true to my words. Who am I to say that you just didn't see a 1,000-pound squirrel run through your backyard? Okay, who am I to say that after having what happened to me? So I had to really take a look at that, and then I had to start studying a little bit on it and remembering some of the things that I've heard on that. And there appears to be, how can I say this? In every dog handler's group, there has to be somebody that's a dog handler to handle the dog in canine. Okay, I hope people can kind of understand that you're dealing with something that's very smart. And just like in human beings, you walk in and you say it was very aggressive towards you. Well, you don't know why. I mean, why don't you go to a bar, find the ugliest, I won't be down there, but ugliest drunk, grumpiest drunk in the bar, take his beer and start throwing hand signals at him, or start throwing coasters at him.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, yeah, you're throwing down, or he said an attempt. Yeah.
And I think that's what's going on there. That's why they got aggressive ones, because there'd be one that's a little bit challenged mentally out there. There could be. Could it be breeding season? It could be. There's a lot of factors that we don't know, but we're only going to find those factors. Right. We're going to find those factors when we have the communication.
And the reason I even brought that up, because I heard there's people that are well known out there. I'm not suggesting Dave at all. I think I follow him, but it's unfair because even some comments in chat, the 411 is everything that surrounds us in this universe. And so I just wanted your thoughts, because again, personally, my encounter was just that. It was creepy, terrible, and traumatic for me. So I started out thinking Bigfoot was just bad news. I don't really believe that today. But like anything in the forest, anything that's not us, and we can be deadly as well. Don't get me wrong. I just don't trust it. But I do trust my instincts, and I trust that if you have the right intentions, harm probably won't be laid upon you.
Yeah.
And Paul, you got anything further to add? We're getting up to the 90-minute mark.
I mean, we're a little past it there. I totally agree that there could be good and bad. I mean, Ernie, thank God you caught this one on a good day. And, it could be that, some of them won't harm a human. Some will see a human walking by with a gun pointed at them and just go ballistic on them. And, would a shotgun stop that thing? No, probably not. So yeah, I mean it's incredible.
We don't know. We can become traumatized by seeing another person attacked and mauled by a dog, and then all dogs are bad.
Yeah.
Maybe they've seen something they were traumatized by. We don't know those things. Those are all psychological problems. We need to be able to do some type of communication with them. And like Rob was saying, there are good ones, and there are bad ones, and it is well known in the Native American community, and a lot of things in the Native American community history are not known to in history books, unless you read the French Canadian history books like cannibalism. That was they did it. Native Americans did do that. Some. Okay, so you have some of these that might be a little bit off. Say their food source is gone. The American chestnut, used to grow wild up around the Appalachians and stuff, and it was all destroyed by bringing in the Japanese. So like Rob was saying, absolutely, and I've come across quite a few people that have had really bad experiences, and that's perhaps why some people may have a little bit of a problem with this one. But I believe there are no coincidences in this world. Absolutely no coincidences in this world. And I am here to just give my story with information to take that next step if you come across one.
Yeah.
Would I pick up a rock and throw a rock back at one that presumably missed me? No, that's not going to happen.
Nah, not a good idea.
I'll pass.
No. We're not playing catch today.
Yeah.
Not today. Maybe with a fellow human. Although some people get down on me for not calling Bigfoot a human, which is a subject for yet another day. You had a great story. I thank you for coming on. Great encounter.
Yes, Ernie. Thank you so much.
You're a very knowledgeable guy. And for our audience, one last time, where can people find you if they'd like to get in touch with you?
Oh, I have a little plug here too. Hang on.
Well, plug away.
You guys know Russell Easterbrooks, I would imagine, or you heard of Russell Easterbrooks.
Yeah.
And he wrote a book, and it's not your average Bigfoot book. He has food sources listed in there. He used to be a warden. He's been many, many things. Okay. And this is historical information where he goes way back. way back, so that you could read a story and then you could read one up towards our times and say, this story contains information from this story also. So you can correlate all these things, the sign language and everything. But this is his book. Okay. That's his book right there. Yeah, it is. It is fascinating. Ron
And
Moore
really
had wrote the foreword.
Really quickly, what I like about that, the word history, because I'm a history guy, and I think that whatever topic you're into, I don't care if it's Bigfoot, ghosts, or drag car racing. Before you even get involved with this, you guys research the history like anything else to give you that foundation. Then you can move from there. But yeah, awesome. So yeah, you got YouTube? You got anywhere if people want to talk to you?
Actually, no, I don't. If you want to talk to me, you go on Matt
Facebook.
I don't have my.
Well, get hold of Matt M. Matt M.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, well, I guess so.
Really. That's just my own personal thing on Facebook, and I don't.
No, well, you know what? That's perfectly fine. Some people got things going on, and again, that's fine with me. I like to offer that to everybody that comes on because
I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Paranormal Paul has got a YouTube channel, Paranormal Among Us, right?
Yes, sir.
So you guys are running
almost a year old now. So yeah, it's
almost a year old. Subscribe to Paul.
Thank you.
Don't forget to subscribe to the Blondes and the Booze Paranormal Podcast, Texas Front Porch, and of course, yours truly, Bigfoot Michigan Rob. Yes. And of course, I got a book out. It's called Bigfoot Michigan Rob Presents True Cryptid Encounters, Book 1. For those that have bought it, thank you. And if you have, Amazon's going to be calling you. Leave a review that helps promote sales of the book. I do appreciate that. And that's in the link on my YouTube page, which I know most of you are subscribed from what I'm looking. Thanks for Ristel for the super chat. Thank you to Andy South for the super chat. Always appreciated. It does help support what we do around here. With that being said, Ernie, stick around for a minute out back. Paul, for those two folk, gentlemen, BMR, until next time, we are out.
Go Lions.
Go Lions.